Good morning. Today is Saturday, June the 10th, and our lesson this morning is Relapse into Faithlessness. Relapse into Faithlessness. And as I was speaking to you on the last session we had, that I will be combining our weekly lesson with Sunday's lesson, and our Sunday's lesson is coming up speaking on Gideon's call to the Lord to do His will. And so our lesson begins out on Monday is speaking to us about uh, what the results of the Israelites' sins in their life caused. And it reminds us of ourselves. When we come back so far, when we got down to the lowest we can go, then we began to pray. Our first lesson is punishment for disobedience. We see the punishment of disobedience in the Israelites' life, and that was coming from Judges, the sixth chapter, the first verse through the 10th. Then we move from there on Tuesday. We get to where we get to many times, where we get to the need for prayer. And so with that, we was talking about a plea for help against our foes. And that lesson came from Psalms, the 83rd chapter, the first to the 12th verse, and the 18th verse. They use this as an example of a prayer that the Israelites may have prayed during this time. Then we move on to uh, Gideon now has received the beginning of a uh, call from the Lord. And on Wednesday, we talk about Gideon and the angel of the Lord. He meeting up with the angel of the Lord. And of course, first he didn't know that he was the angel of the Lord. And as things was brought about in this lesson in Judges 6:19 through 24, it shows that Gideon finds out that due to the signs that he received, that he was that the being or the person that had come up there that he had spoke with was an angel of the Lord. And so we move on to from there where Gideon requests a sign. He requests a sign, he says, from the Lord. And he was requests this line and this sign in Judges 6:36 through 40, where he's asking for a specific sign on a fleece. And this fleece represents the coverage of the uh, Israelites as well as the coverage of himself. Now we move on from this point of coverage, we move on to uh, from receiving the sign, where they say there are 8 signs in Judges 6. I've found 7, and I will go over those in just a second. The 7 signs that I've found. If anyone else find the other sign, text me or uh, holler at me, show me where the other signs is. But I will put that. I will give you those 7 signs that I have found. And for Friday's lesson, it was Gideon's spectacular triumph. We go into where Gideon is successful in battle when we win our victory over what is going on, over what the situation is, and how we react, and how we show our praise and our thanksgiving to the Lord for our triumph in our life. Then Saturday's lesson, which is today, it brings us back to us again, where after victory, we then go for a while in serving the Lord, doing what He would have us to do. But if we are not mindful, if we're not careful, then we go into a relapse. Um, this is where we are at this chapter now, Gideon's relapse into faithlessness. And this lesson is Judges 8, the 29th through the 35th. And the scripture lesson text read, Then Jeroboam, the son of Joash, went and dwelt in his own house. Gideon had 70 sons who were in his own offspring, for he had many wives, and his concubine who was in Shechem also bore him a son, whose name he called Amalek. Now Gideon the son of Joash died at a good old age, and was buried in the tomb of Joash his father. And Ophrah of the Abrazites. So it was, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel again played the harlot with the Baals, and made Baal-Berith their god. Thus the children of Israel did not remember the Lord their God, who had delivered them from the hands of all their enemies on every side, nor did they show kindness to the house of Jerubbabel, which was Gideon, in accordance with the good he had done for Israel. This here is a wonderful sign showing us how after Gideon had did all he did for the Israelites. He had brought them out of bondage. He had fixed it where they had food to eat. He had got rid of the enemy on all sides, and that was through the grace of God and how God had brought him out, and how he would not even accept kingship because he said the Lord is your king, the Lord is your God, he is your God. You don't need a king. Uh, After he died, many times they waited many years after the person died, the judge died in that time. But with Gideon, immediately after Gideon died, they went and started, as the scripture said, they went whoring after other gods. They just had to have something else in place. And this in our life represents us many times that we turn from what the Lord has done. We thank him for his blessings. We please and we give grace, and we give sacrifice and offering. We pay our tithes. We do what we're supposed to do. We help others. And then after a period of time, we fall back into what we shouldn't be doing. I pray that we pay attention to these forefathers, and the Lord blessing us to see what happened to them as we go through Judges this time period. We see that they made, as said, they were like the Israelites when they were taken out of the land of Egypt and taken over to their promised land. They continued to go back. They were saved and they continued to go back. No matter what the time period, they continued to go back. Let us get in a place to where we stay and remain in the Lord's hand. Let us get in a place where we continue to do his will. And I pray that one of you will find that eighth sign that was given to us in the chapter 6 of the on Gideon. And the first sign that I found was the Lord was with him, and that was in verse 12. The angel of the Lord made a statement that God was with him. Okay, that was the first sign that showed that Gideon received. The second sign was in verse 18. It is, depart not from me. And he brought forth a sacrifice. This is where the angel of the Lord came up to, was under the tree, and Gideon brought him a meal, and he took the staff that was in his hand, and it set on fire. The third sign is that Gideon shows his belief that the Lord is with him by throwing down the altar in his family, by being obedient to God. And that was in verse 25 to 32. And it gives an example of what he did, showing that he believed, that he accepted the Lord as being with him. And then we have the fourth side. It said, make known to me, make known that I am with you. Blow the horn. In verse 34, Gideon blows the horn for all the Israelites that was in that area to come and join with him. And he did so. And with him doing so, this here was showing that this here was an outward sign showing that he accepted that the Lord was with him. Then he gets very particular and say, but he's not gone to war yet. He gets very particular. And in verse 37, it says that the fleece the dew would be on the fleece only, which is a sign that the Lord is with him personally, covering him, and no dew would be on the ground. And so with the dew being around it and on the fleece only, and he wrung it out, and it was a bowl full of water, his sign was completed. And then the next sign, the sixth sign, is the dew was on the ground only and not on the fleece. That the Israelites, the people that was going to be with him, the people that was going to go forth with him to show a sign, he was going to be the one that was going to be the one that was covered. So he wanted to make sure that they were covered as well as himself. And then and that is the last sign that I have. But I believe it's one more. I can't remember exactly where I saw that at, but it said it was 8 signs that he received showing God was with him. And I only found 7. So since someone find the 8th one, give me a text or a message or call and let me know what you find. And I pray that you all have a wonderful and blessed day.